All right, Barbara. The county recently completed a comprehensive housing needs analysis. Is that true?
That's true.
Okay, it gets harder. Why? What were we hoping to learn from it?
What is, no,
Yeah.
Jeopardy.
And you have to use your microphone and you have to hold it close.
Okay. I'm going to answer the first two questions here fairly quickly. So why did we do this study? Actually, during the community input process during the long-range strategic plan, folks in the community identified the need for different types of housing and housing at affordable price points. And so a specific outcome of that input was there's the direction in the long-range strategic plan to do a countywide study. To your second question, what did we hope to learn? Frankly, we just wanted to understand the marketplace better. We heard this input, we work with communities, and we thought by having a baseline of data and information about what's happening now and in the future, that would inform a better understanding of the marketplace and also inform our approach on housing programs. Also, communities around the county have different market issues, access to transportation or employer growth. So the communities were saying, hey, you know, what's going to be happening in the future? So as a result of that, we commissioned the study through Maxfield Research, an independent firm that specializes in this work, and then we asked them to look at the county in 5 sub areas and to look at the countywide needs and then also to look at those 5 areas. And then at the end of my remarks, I'm going to go over the little graphics that are at your table, because that is a key piece of the takeaway of the study. Now, the next few slides, I'm going to highlight the outcome of the study. This is always dangerous: data, a full stomach, and charts. So try to stay with me. I'll try to be pithy and cogent as possible. So first, 2 slides on the marketplace. The first one is about home ownership. So non-lakeshore property has increased in the median price 42% since 2016. So as you all know, there's more people in the marketplace. Interest rates are lower, but compounding that issue was a lower supply of available inventory. And realtors advised us that, look, there's a lot of competitive bidding happening. So the impact of that is that entry-level home buyers were priced out. So that's one piece of the market. On the rental side, it's the same story, but only with rental units. So the vacancy rate for the county as a whole is 2%, which is below equilibrium, which is typically 5%. But Pelican Rapids, Perm, New York Mills, all are at 0 or below 1%. So the impact of this is it's very hard for folks to find a rental unit, especially considering when folks move into the county. Typically, they rent an apartment before they purchase a home. Or if you're struggling with housing stabilization, then that's even harder to find a safe place to call home. So those are the market slides. Now there's 2 slides about the demography. So this chart, the blue bars are owner-occupied households by income. The orange bars are the rental households. I have my Minnesota accent, blue bars and orange bars. But so you can see that for the rental households, a majority of them have incomes below $50,000. What this chart isn't saying is that almost 40% of of renters are paying more than 30% of their income toward their rent and utilities. The demographers call this cost burden. This is an existing demand for new affordable housing. The bars in the middle, from 50,000 to 75,000, those are the folks that form that workforce demand for not only a market rate development, but also entry level home ownership. And even on the owner-occupied side, 20% of households also pay 30% of their incomes toward their mortgage and utilities. So reflecting the increasing costs of housing in the marketplace. So going to the next slide is the age of our households. Over the next 15 years, the county's growth is really driven by the right side of this chart. Folks that are aging 65 and over in the next 15 years. So the right side of the chart is saying that there's a strong demand for maintenance-free association, one-story townhome developments, alternative housing, so that the seniors can move into those types of housing units, and then their former homes become the opportunity for the entry level price point, young families, new workers to the county. But if you notice on the left side of the chart, younger folks are declining. So the 18 to 24-year-olds, there's going to be a little bit less of them in the next 5 years. What's the impact? Well, the opportunity is that creating more rental housing can serve a lower income individual that's trying to start out with their new job, or folks moving into the county to work for an employer. So what's the reveal? What is the demand? So when it comes to general occupancy demand, look at the left two on the left side of the screen, almost 1,400 for sale single family and multiple family units, attached twin homes, for example. On the rental side, it's about 1,100 units with a majority for market rate, but a substantial size amount for affordable housing. So townhomes, both rental and ownership, would be a nice option here, hopefully a little lower in cost. Then on the senior side, there's a significant demand for what the market researcher called active adults, and so owner-occupied demand, market rate rental, active adult affordable, and subsidized. So you see on those two numbers on the right, that's almost 700 households for affordable senior housing. And then on the service-based senior housing, there's a little bit smaller demand for right now, but these two slides really demonstrate the strong demand at every point in the continuum. So that leaves me with the graphic on your tables. Just real quick, I want to explain this takeaway. So I just talked about the 15-year demand. What this chart is saying is these are the development opportunities in the next 5 years according to each area of the county. So this isn't demand, but what it's saying is based on today, based on the vacancy rates, based on what we know in the marketplace, here are the opportunities for entry level housing, which is price point below $250,000, for rental housing, market rate, affordable senior and non-senior, and there's a good amount of demand for move-up housing, which is the price point of $250,000 to $400,000. So this is what we wanted to accomplish. Thank you to Sarah for accomplishing this, but you have information all on one page about the opportunities. So Nick, that's my story.
It's almost like Barbara was prepared for that. Let's see if Tal's is equally prepared. So Tal, earlier I talked about Otter Tail County is blessed with 22 charming communities, 62 townships. I love them all equally. And many of them are here today, right? We have administrators, we have city council folks, we have individuals from those communities. And so my question for you is, and maybe Val wants to jump in on this too, if Tal can't answer it fully, is from your perspective, why should they care about the housing needs in their community, and what did we learn from the needs analysis that communities should be aware of?
So first, let me say that most of our Minnesota housing development dollars that we get from the legislature are for the upcoming 2 years. So it's really important as groups are coming to us competing for dollars, and our big annual application actually comes out next week, so be looking for that. But you want to make sure that you've got the data to show that you've got, that you're proposing to build the right kind of housing, whether it's rental or ownership. You're targeting the right income levels, and that you're asking for the right amount of money, so that if you're looking for affordability gap or value gap or both, again, that the data that you're coming to us is going to help justify the need, again, for what you can do over the upcoming 2 years. So when the legislature provides money to Minnesota Housing for us to then award out, they want to see shovels in the ground, Minnesotans at work, people getting into housing. They don't want to see us doing big awards that sit there for multiple years and the dollar's sitting there, or frankly, even worse, you've built the houses in parts of the state where there is not as much demand, and then you've got houses for sale and they're just not selling. Because, we can do a lot of gap financing, but the one financing that we cannot do is, if you can't sell a house for the appraised value, there is no Minnesota housing money to fill in that gap, and we've had that situation happen in communities before where they've had to lower the price and they've had to come up with their own money to fill in that gap, and those are not pretty conversations. So the big application that's coming out next week, frankly, mirrors a lot of the programs that you all are doing locally. So it can be new construction, acquisition rehab, owner-occupied home improvement, or local down payment assistance. What I would say is, to the degree that you can leverage and compete for our money, all the better for you to then have your local dollars going towards other activities where we at Minnesota Housing don't have as good of programs. And I would say on the rental side, some of the rental home improvement programs that you all have, we don't have those types of programs at Minnesota Housing. And the infrastructure dollars that you have, we don't have things like that. So again, to the degree that you can come and leverage our dollars effectively and then use your dollars for these other areas, it's going to mean you're going to get more units done of all types across the board. So again, be looking for that application next week. It's going to be due in mid-July. My team is happy to talk with whomever might be applying. Could be a for-profit developer, nonprofit developer. It's anybody but an individual can come to us. So happy to chat afterwards.
I'll just talk a little bit about the project that we did with Minnesota Housing and how we got started. I met Tal, I think at a League of Minnesota Cities regional meeting probably 3 or 4 years ago, talking about their programs, and I thought, this sounds like a great opportunity for Battle Lake. And so we had Tal come to our EDA meeting, and then from there we started to do the work. So I started looking at the application thinking, this is not a program that we could do ourselves. So, and then that's when I reached out to Barbara and said, hey, will you help us? This is what we're looking at. And what we wanted to do was build some single family homes. And so after talking with Barbara and going through the application process, of course, a housing study was really important to do before we did that application. So in conjunction with West Central Initiative, and then we also got a planning grant from the CDA We did the housing study, and then we also did a survey, a housing survey, which provided us the information that we already knew, but yet gave the proof for the application. So HRA applied for the grant, and then of course there was the low interest loan to go with it, and of course it was to build either 2 or 3 single-family homes in one of the developments we have, and providing that value gap and really giving somebody a good opportunity to get in a new home at a much decreased amount of money than what they would have to pay if they're building it themselves.
Thank you. Tal, can you maybe provide a little more detail from the Minnesota housing perspective on how do need analyses help make funding decisions?
Yeah, so I think a lot of, on the multifamily side, let me first say, if you're doing a rental development, those are really highly competitive. So on the rental side, generally speaking, we get 4 applications for every one that we fund. So, do the math there. On the single family side, I think most people are surprised how many projects we do fund. So for example, in January, when we did our 2021 awards, we had received 45 applications. We funded 40 of them. So again, the vast majority of them, and frankly, 3 out of the 5 that got turned down was a first-time applicant who frankly just didn't quite understand the program and didn't talk to us ahead of time. So again, we fund the vast majority, but what it helps do is, if you come to us and say, hey, we want to build 30 homes over the next 2 years, and again, you don't have the data to support that, whether it be sort of, a needs analysis of who might be buying over the next 2 years, or sort of the experience of the developer, we're likely to do an award, but we're going to right size that award, where instead of 30, maybe we're going to award 5 or 10 or whatever it is. So again, on the single family side, it's sort of justifying and trying to show us the need for what, again, you can do and sell in the upcoming 2 years that's going to get you those awards. And obviously, I have no idea, for any of you following the legislature, I have no idea how the session's going to turn out. But, there are lots of dollars that are being proposed on different things. So we are hopeful that there might be some additional money coming our way. But again, even last year, again, when we fund the vast majority, it's more about the number of units that you're getting, and obviously you all getting stuff to scale. The more units you can get, obviously, the better for you all as well. So,
Thank you. Val, why did Battle Lake do a housing needs analysis, and how have you activated the information that came from it?
So going back to what I just talked about, we really needed it to get that information that we already knew and to apply for the Minnesota housing grant. And again, it came back with, yep, we knew this is what it was going to say, and it really provided the information we needed.
I'm out of questions. So it's an opportunity now for those of you here in the audience to ask for some questions, because if Sarah, I believe I have plenty of time left, correct? So.
Can I just make one comment before? I just wanted to make one comment. When you're doing projects, even in general, get to know your resources. So I can tell you that Nick and Barbara, anybody at the county level, West Central Initiative, they know me because I'm in their face, and it might be a crazy project, and how do we get this done? So Hatchery Row, again, going back to that with us, that was really kind of a pipe dream and Field of Dreams, and it took a lot of effort and knowing the right people to ask the question and getting the right resources to get the job done.
Thanks, Val. So what question, and you can certainly seek these people out later, but I suspect if you have the question, lots of other people have the same question. So here's your opportunity to help your neighbor. What questions do you have? Because we've got some great resources here in front of us.
Tal, I was wondering, out of the 40, you said 40 houses, single families that you...
40 projects.
40
yep.
projects. Okay, so does that come down to, is it Is it the city that applies for those through Minnesota Housing? Is it a contractor, a developer? How does something like that work?
Anybody but an individual. So Mr. and Mrs. Smith can't come and apply to build a house for themselves. It could be a for-profit developer, a nonprofit developer, an HRA, an EDA, a city, a county, a tribal nation. I mean, the list goes on, but practically speaking, again, it's anybody but an individual. I think the other piece that we are oftentimes, we can help you figure out, sometimes in a coalition where maybe the city or county is partnering with a developer, sometimes we can help you figure out maybe who's in the best position to apply with us, because we're going to do some financial underwriting of, let's say, developers that we don't necessarily do for government agencies applying with us. So again, we can help you sort of figure out who might be the best positioned, again, to apply with us. But frankly, we would love to see more for-profit developers applying with us. That is something that has been a relatively low number and a steady number over the years. I get that there's a decent amount of paperwork involved in the application. So, I mean, it oftentimes is a city or county is going to come in and do the application, and then, you know, in partnership with the developer, obviously the developer focus on what they do best is developing the house, and the city or county or whoever sort of takes on the administrative piece. But again, it doesn't matter to us, and again, we can help you figure that out.
Thank you.
So is that, just to follow up on that, so is that can happen? I heard you say you don't get maybe as many for-profit, so can a person like Barbara help a for-profit builder, or Amy help them with that red tape?
We have lots of examples of, like, let's say in Duluth. Duluth for many years did what they called At Home in Duluth, where Duluth would come to us, apply for dollars on behalf of 4 or 5 developers. So they would come and get a rather large chunk of money for a relatively large number of units. They would administer the dollars. And frankly, like when people are getting affordability gap dollars, that becomes an interest-free loan. So you need someone who's able to close a loan. So again, the city took that on, and then, like I said, worked with the 4 or 5 developers to, again, build the houses. And that model has worked well in lots of parts of the state. It's just one example, but it's worked well.
Thanks.
Yeah, so my question is, how specific ought a need assessment be for you in terms of the community? For example, you might have this data right here that Barbara nicely did. I'm Parker's Prairie in that subregion. Is that good? Or ought Parker's Prairie take it that next step to say, this is what's really truly happening here in Parker's?
I mean, I think what you're going to want to do is say, beyond this data, we're going to be targeting people at, you know, again, statutorily, we can go to the 115% of median income that a lot of us have been talking about today. A lot of communities target lower incomes than that. So if you're going to be targeting, let's say, 80% of median, we want to see that you've got enough potential buyers at 80% who are, you know, interested in purchasing homes. And as we're sort of doing the financial calculations, hey, how much affordability, you know, how much can somebody at 80% afford? And then if there's a remaining gap above and beyond what they can afford via their first mortgage, any local down payment assistance, that's where you might then also ask us for some additional affordability gap down payment assistance. So it sort of is where on the income spectrum you're targeting, just to make sure that, again, the numbers are working out so that we don't give you money to do 10 homes and you get 6 of them done and then you're suddenly like, oh, well, we ran out of money. So we're trying to help you figure out that you're asking for the right amount of money and we're awarding the right amount of money in the first place.
Just a follow up to Ryan's question. In terms of data integrity, right? Do you actually need to have a firm to validate the analysis, or can him and I put it together and say, oh, really, no, in Parker's Prairie we have X amount of demand?
I mean, the more rigorous, the better. I mean, if you've got data, if you have your source of data that you used to provide to us, I mean, I think we look at a wide spectrum of data that comes from different communities, but if there have been studies done or, some source of data, obviously that's going to be better than, some people sort of just doing more casual market study or something like that.
And in the Battle Lake case, what we did is the staff at West Central Initiative did the demographic analysis based on the census, and then shout out to Ryan. We had a contract with the U of M to do the survey in the city of Battle Lake. So we had two data sources that complemented one another.
And Amy, I'm walking back to Darren, but while I walk, is it safe to say in Otter Tail County there's really no reason not to do a more rigorous because we have the manpower and resources to assist them, right?
You bet. So, obviously, I'd love to hear development. Being a banker, I would love to hear that there's a lot of projects going on. The data that you guys are using, Barbara had a graph up there that showed that at some point, people that will have houses to sell and the market is going to soften because the millennials, or however you want to say it, there's not going to be as many buyers coming through it. In the last housing summit we had, they said that right now there's a short supply of housing now, but your graph says the same thing, that pretty soon we're going to hit to where there's going to be more houses than there's going to be demand. So my first question is, the data that you're using, is that also taking into consideration houses that will be available potentially in the future when, I don't know if it's baby boomers or whatever, have those houses? And then my follow-up question would be, when you have a community 15 years down the road that now has a surplus of housing and not as many buyers, what's the impact on the community?
So I'm going to take a shot at it here first. So the slide about the millennials was that there were more households in the marketplace searching for houses right now. Based on the data, my interpretation is that we're behind. There's a lack of choice and has been for quite some time. And what we risk is that lack of choice, what we risk is losing population. So yes, the population in general is getting older, but what we can do now, 2022 until 15 years from now, is really prop up the rental market to attract those younger households so that they choose to come and put down their roots, and the entry level price point has to be propped up as well. And there's more demand for that type of unit according to the study. So I think whatever we do, whatever we can do today is just going to pay dividends. So hopefully that's not the problem 15 years from now.
I don't know if there's other questions, but I just wanted to give a quick, little more context to this, the data map, and just reference there is a larger county map over by where Nick is walking that shows more detail as far as which townships are included, different communities, and the blue central market is the kind of T-shaped area within this map. So just wanted to give that little additional description on the map that's in front of you. So if there's any questions about the geographic areas represented, you can see a more detailed map over there, or just grab us for any questions about what's represented in what submarket.
Other questions?
I got a question. Can you go back to that slide that shows the senior housing piece?
Thanks for this information. It's really good. It's going to be nice to have some directional data. But I'm just thinking about the sensitivities on the forecasting, and what are the sensitivities that might affect the demand into the future? I'm just thinking about the senior housing with services right now. If you think about that today as compared to last year, it's a much different picture. So we don't have the capacity today because of staffing. And is there something in your modeling that allows to adjust that sensitivity?
Well, the demand for the service-based accounts for the fact that many service-based facilities have a labor shortage, and therefore that vacancy rate is like at 20%. So from a demand calculation standpoint, I believe what Mary did is just say, make an assumption that that is going to get better over a 5 to 7 year time frame. So this demand that you see on the screen is 15 years, accounting for the fact that right now vacancy is fairly high. On the active adult side, the demand is just strong because a majority of the population growth in the next 15 years are coming from folks that are 65 and older.
Thanks, that makes sense.
I've got a question. Have there been any estimates about, again, sort of in the post-pandemic world, people being able to telework from anywhere? Again, I work for the state. We're now allowed to work anywhere we want in Minnesota or Wisconsin. I've got coworkers who, you know, we were all in the metro with a couple of exceptions, and I've got coworkers moving all over the state right now. Have there been estimates or analyses of trying to attract folks, you know, to move to their lake home or do whatever, that people are just not tied to an office in the same way? And I feel like there's going to be a resurgence of a lot of people sort of having a lot more choices. And
Well, I'll start off, and maybe Nick, you can comment on that as well. Staring at me. But so that wasn't a factor in this demand analysis, but to the extent Otter Tail County is a desirable place to live in the senior demographic, folks are choosing to come and retire here. They may not stay into those more significant years that you need more care. They may move on to where their children live and so on. But certainly that aspect is driving that. And from a remote employee standpoint, I don't have any statistics, but you know, that's part of the potential growth.
Yeah, I don't know that we've done an analysis. In fact, I know we haven't, and I don't know if there are broader analyses that have been done. Anecdotally, I suspect every one of you can point to 2 or 3 people that over the past couple of years have said, "Oh, I can do this from my cabin, or I can do this somewhere else. I don't have to live where I'm currently living to do my job." This didn't go over very well in my family, but literally a month before the pandemic, we convinced my brother and sister-in-law and their 3 little kids to move to Otter Tail County. We're like, "Yeah, just come up." Like, they're like, "All right, we'll get a small place, we'll get an apartment, and then we'll eventually find housing." I'm like, "Yeah, it'll be no problem, you'll find housing." A month later, the pandemic happened. They still are in that tiny little apartment, and they had a 4th kid while they were there. So they're not here, and please don't tell them I talked about them today, but there are lots and lots of examples of that, and I bring it up because he has his job, their jobs, one is Colorado-based, one is somewhere else, not even in Minnesota, and they're just like, "Yeah, we can do that from Fergus Falls." So I think all of you have lots and lots of those examples as well.
yesterday was the second day I've been back at my desk in 2+ years. Last year I went to my desk once for half an hour, and then I went in yesterday to get the car to drive up here. And suddenly my 45-minute bus ride didn't seem as exciting as it did before the pandemic. So I'm just thinking that you've got some golden opportunities to sort of sell this lifestyle, and I think there are going to be people who are going to take advantage of that.
Other questions? Oh, sorry. Yep.
I'm just curious what the difference between independent living and active senior. What is the difference?
Well, the independent assisted and memory care, the researcher made this assumption that with independent living, there is some type of services associated with that. Maybe it's a coordinator to connect the senior with a service provider. So to put all those product types in one category and separate that out from the quote active adult where there is no service provision provided.
Does that answer?
I have a question on affordable housing. In my community, I so often hear people say, we need more affordable housing. What is affordable housing, or how is affordable housing determined? Can you help me on that one?
Yes, so affordable housing essentially is making a reasonable payment toward your housing and utilities. And the typical rule of thumb for the last 20 or 30 years is 30% of one's income is probably devoted to a housing, a rent payment, a mortgage payment, plus those utility costs. And what's been happening in the marketplace is that as housing costs go up, the wages that one earns may not go up at the same rate. So there's a larger gap, and that's where earlier I talked about cost burden. So folks are paying 40 to 50% of their income toward housing costs. So what affordable housing, let's take a rental example. So if you have a rental development and your expenses are here, but because you want to charge an affordable rent that approximately matches 30% of one's income, that revenue is going to be lower. So what do we have to do to fill that gap? And there's a number of programs to do that. But that's part of the reason why, well, one of the programs that we're offering is that when a developer is putting together the capital to help pay for construction and have revenue that's high enough to pay for the monthly bills, to operate the building, that if there's a deferred loan in there that can fill the gap, that helps make the unit affordable so that the rent is more affordable to the tenants. And of course, if the owner is going to sell or refinance, we would like the money to come back and help the next one. So, but does that answer your question?
Kind of.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to talk more after the session to fill in the other half of the kinda.
Yeah, I have a question I'd like to ask regarding developers get involved in a project, and obviously they don't want to be strapped to that project so they can move on and create another project. So how can we facilitate a developer selling his project after some given period of time, and it has this gap financing on it, and it doesn't make it very desirable for another investor to pick it up? Can some of these incentives be transferred to the next purchaser so we can get that developer back in the marketplace building another development?
I'm going to say in general, yeah, yes, but for example, the infrastructure costs are those initial first-time costs. I think with a revolving rental loan, that can certainly be incorporated. Each deal is going to be different, so we'll. And that's part of our challenge here, is to take a look at each application as it comes and see if we can accommodate the developer in that way.
We got another 4 or 5 minutes. Any other questions? Yep.
I got a pretty loud voice.
And I can repeat it.
Population went up as the older baby boomers started, maybe downsizing. How does that play a role into your studies as
they were in, that they built their family and becomes available?
Well, that's the, what I'm calling the churn in the marketplace that we would like to see. And I want to qualify too, to make sure, I may not have been clear when I said this, but the growth in older households, 65 and above, do include folks that are here already now. And yes, there will be folks that come in out of the county and retire, but those two demographics are very strong. So that is why we're trying to encourage these different housing types for seniors, so that that decision is easier to make. It's in the community that they know and love, and frankly, they spent their lives, with their children and paying taxes and the schools, et cetera. So that's exactly what we want to accomplish.
Any last questions? Well, they will hang around. Let's give our panel a round of applause. Thank you, panel. And we've talked a lot about throughout the day. Jeff multiple times referred to, all right, what can we do to activate? So just some takeaways from this. We don't want to sit here, consume, and then do nothing with it. So from a developer builder standpoint, we can match our housing product to the submarket opportunities and reach out to the county about project support. I think they talked about some real opportunities if you're a developer in terms of what might be some future projects for you. Cities, promote your opportunities to the development community. So if you know that you've got some opportunities, make sure you're getting word out about those.